runs along
Okay.
here that actually brings them. This is Sparks Boulevard right here. So the path that fully goes around here and back, and I believe it does go to the north.
Oh, cool.
I can get you a better picture of that if
I
you'd
just
like to know,
wondering.
but,
I think it's fantastic whenever we can get our federal money into what we're doing as a city. But I'm ready to make a motion, sir, if you'd like. I move to approve the cooperative local public agency agreement with the Nevada Department of Transportation for a grant for the Regional Trail Retaining Wall Project with a potential cost of $245,430 in fiscal year 2020, with a NDOT reimbursement not to exceed $230,159.
Ms. Bybee.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Dare, seconded by Ms. Bybee to approve agenda item 9.3 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Amber. Okay, 9.4, consideration and possible approval of an expenditure not to exceed $465,935 for contract laborers for temporary agencies for parks, streets, drains, and fleet maintenance during fiscal year 2019. Mr. Corman.
Good afternoon, Mary Martini, Council, Ron Corman, your Public Works Manager. The agenda item before you today is, as you mentioned, requesting approval to expend up to $935 for contract labor for this current fiscal year. As you mentioned, we are using it in several areas now across Public Works. We're using it in the drains for weeds. We use it for the mowing crew. We run an additional trash truck. We work with irrigation during the summertime with our parks folks. We run the community service van with the contracted labor. We use it for pothole patching, crack sealing, cleaning alleyways, cleaning ditches, weed abatement, and in fleet maintenance, we use it for trash pickup, shop cleaning, and parts pickup. This last year, the funds that were allocated to Public Works for this were used to pay for 29,423 and a half hours of contract labor. That equals 14 full-time employees. So that's what we're doing with your dollars, and we're asking your permission to do that again. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions for Mr. Corman? Okay, if not, looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
Move to approve an expenditure not to exceed $465,935 for contract laborers from temporary agencies, parks, streets, drains, and fleet maintenance during fiscal year 2019.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Abbott, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve agenda item 9.4 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
The public speaking today, the alleys, is that a real problem, Ron? Is that?
It has become a big problem since we've sort of what we're doing in other places in the city, and then since the new waste management contract has come in. People are dumping stuff because waste management won't take it. So that has become a bigger and bigger problem for us. So we're weekly sending crews in through the alleys to pick up the trash and whatnot that gets dumped out there.
Is most of the parking problem, is it from the residents that are parking right
The
there?
parking problem, I haven't really been focused on. I do see vehicles parked in the alleys. The problem that we focus on obviously is the trash and the big screen TVs and the old rear projection things and couches and mattresses and that kind of thing that get dumped into the alleys. So.
Okay, thank you.
It's awfully tough for us to legislate people doing the right thing, isn't it? People just do the wrong thing. There's nothing much we can do about it except clean up the mess, and it's
Yes, sir.
very unfortunate, so. Okay, any further discussion on 9.4? Looking for a motion? You already do it?
Motion in a second.
Have a motion and a second. I am losing track of where I'm going, okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Don't ever break my concentration.
I didn't, I'm sorry.
Okay, 9.5, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of impact fee agreement number 28 AC 5496 with Lennar of Reno LLC to allow for participation and use of credits and impact fee service area number 1. Mr. Speedhump.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor,
Erickson.
City Council members. John Erickson, City Engineer for the record. As the Mayor alluded to, this is the impact fee agreement number 28 with Lennar Reno LLC in the impact fee service area number 1. As you may recall, the Community Services Director presented a similar agreement with Pioneer Meadows Development LLC back in July of last year. The impact service area number 1 has a capital improvement plan. There's basically 4 major components to that plan. There's sanitary sewer improvements, flood control, fire stations, and regional trails. Should the developer choose to construct a CIP element with their development, they are eligible to receive credits up to the value of what was constructed. The first step is to allow the developer into the credit program. They must agree to the terms outlined in the administrative manual for impact fee service area number 1, which is the agreement before you today. Should the council approve the agreement today, Lennar Reno will be eligible to have a trust account established in their name for any future creditable work in impact fee service area number 1. And your next item that, should you approve this item, is the impact fee credit agreement. That concludes my presentation. I'd be able to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Erickson? Mr. Dare?
I just have one question. Can we change to Lennar Sparks? Will they change their name if they want to? Are we allowed to do that? I'm just
Can we
kidding.
do what?
Sure.
Well, they're called Lennar Reno. I just didn't know if we want to change their name.
Just cross it out of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve. So,
Do you have a second?
Well-
Mr. Smith?
can we read it out?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I move to approve impact fee agreement number 28 with Lennar Reno LLC to allow for participation and use of credits in impact fee service area number 1.
Mr. Smith?
I'll second that with the question.
Okay, wait a minute, we got a motion and a second. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Dare, seconded by Mr. Smith. Go ahead.
Is this for extension of roadways, like from 2 to 4 lanes? Or what's the credits for?
No, what the credits, this just enters them into the credit program so that they're eligible for items that are in the CIP in IFSA number 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Lawson?
So, John, this is credits that have already been issued that
No,
we're just transferring
no,
over?
this
These are
is-
new credits?
What this is doing is bringing Lennar Reno into the program so that they're eligible
Hadn't
to.
been in prior.
They have not been in prior.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 9.6, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of impact fee credit agreement number 24, City of Sparks and Lennar LLC, including 93,345 in impact fee credits that have been used for future building. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, John Erickson, City Engineer for the record. As the Mayor indicated, this is an impact fee credit agreement number 24 between the city and Lennar Reno LLC. Similar to what the Community Services Director did last year, there was an agreement similar to this for Pioneer Meadows, where the regional path was constructed on the south end of the project, where I believe that Councilman Smith and Councilman Derry, you guys regularly jog out there, so,
I know I do.
okay.
I've seen it many times.
As I mentioned, the impact fee agreement for Pioneer Meadows came in the first part of August of last year, and against a very similar agreement that we're doing today. Lennar Reno has constructed a portion of the regional trail system adjacent to Pioneer Meadows Village B, where the pathway is, where it was constructed is up in the southeast corner of the development. It's shown in salmon here, and I believe that Councilman Derry probably ran on that already. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Where you running from?
Chasing me.
Staff has inspected the improvements and agrees with the quantity and pricing that came in with the credit request of $93,345. Should council approve the credit agreement, credits will be issued to Lennar Reno LLC and will be able to be used, they will be able to use the credits to offset any future building permit costs. And As you may recall, the credits can be used anywhere in IFSA number 1. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Erickson? Mr. Dare?
I have a question. So if we just brought them in, they haven't had any chance to put any money into the coffer. How come we're so quickly turning around and giving back money? Am I mistaken?
They have, and Mr. Martini, thank you. This is kind of my,
I mean, if so, I want to join this. If that's going to work that way, that's cool.
Councilman Dare, for the record, John Martini, your Community Services Director. If you entered into that business, you wouldn't last long. Congratulations to Mr. Erickson. He's starting to take over the reins of the program. He did a good job. I want to clarify a couple of things. We have an error in the staff report, just a typo. The credits can be used to offset impact fees that are charged at time of building permit. They can't be used to pay for a building permit. I don't know if you picked that up. We'll fix that in the next report. My apologies. And then to your question directly, Councilman Dare, if you will recall in Impact Fee Service Area 1, I've been up here a few times. We've had to redo it. We just recently redid it with the Highland Ranch project. There's a capital improvements program in there for our regional trails, a future fire station, our flood control facilities, and then we always talk about the main sewer pipes that were paid for long ago. So if a developer, as he comes through John's process for a subdivision or development in our, mainly out there, our planned unit developments, they can choose to go one of two routes. If they're building adjacent to something that's in our CIP, whether it's a flood channel that needs to get built, or in this case, we're looking at a regional trail connection system across the north end of Pioneer Meadows, either they can elect to simply pay us cash when they pick up their building permits, or a lot of our developers, and particularly Lennar, they like to install these amenities, this regional amenity, if you will, as they're going along the section line building the subdivision. So they chose to build the trail for us. They gave us the cost. John and his staff have inspected it. They agree with the cost to provide it. They've already paid that contractor, so now we will give them credit. So when they come in to pull their building permit to build the houses that you see along this section line, they won't pay cash. They'll just use their credit book, and with time, with each building permit, the credits will come back down.
That makes sense. I do have one more question, if you don't mind.
So to answer your question,
does make
we'll
sense.
give you credits if you build something.
No,
You
that
got to
does
pay
make
for it
sense.
first,
Okay,
yeah.
I get it. So they're just getting the credit for what they've done. They're not getting anything from us.
They're
But I do have
following the program.
No free money.
a question when it comes to, so part of this impact fee portion is, we know we need some of this finances for future fire station and things like that. Do we have any, do we sit back and look at how much we're going to set aside for the larger needs we have before we take some of the smaller needs, like a trail and stuff like that, when it comes to this impact fee portion? I know this is a little bit different because they've already spent this money.
Well,
We have this impact fee money coming in that we have to anticipate having and making sure is there for future things. Is there any, I don't know, budget or a foresight or any kind of
Yeah,
looking?
there is, and it's actually, each time I've come before you with the impact fee updates and the CIP, that exactly what you've asked for is in there. We show
Okay, I
you the
remember
CIP,
that now.
remember, we show
Actually,
you
I
the
do.
line items for the CIP, we show you what's been built, how much of it's been paid off, how many credits have been issued. Actually, the fire chief just, little trailer coming to you, because as you remember, we approved the quarry agreement, so at the end of this year, we're gonna update the impact fees again to now see if the quarry fits. So, Chief Maples has been looking hard at where we need to put Fire Station 6. We're starting to get cost data, so we will update if we see the need through our analysis to increase the cost for Fire 6. That will be reflected in the next version that John is gonna bring you. And then to one part of your question, yeah, we certainly did prioritize what needed to be needed in Northeast Sparks as we started to develop from, basically McCarran up. And I think you'll all acknowledge that we put the flood control system in first, which paid dividends about 2 years ago. I thought I would never see the Kylie main channel full of water. In fact, I prayed I never would, but we did. So yes, there is a priority. Fire Station 5 was built in the foothills. We just recently finished paying the developer back through an agreement that we did on that. So there is a priority. A lot of it, to be honest with you, though, to Councilman Dare, we kind of have to get them as the developers are coming. It's kind of unfair for somebody developing in the center of Northeast Sparks to take care of something up in the north. If there's not a real clear connection, it's in the program, we could ask for it. They would probably elect just to pay cash. So, yeah, there's a priority, there's a CIP, there's a program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Ms. Bybee?
John, I had a question. So,
Which
John?
Either
one.
This happens to us all the time.
Actually, either one.
One with an H?
Either one of you can answer
That
this.
speed hump over there, yes, that's it.
Lennar has obviously been building homes out there, so they've been a builder and developer. Why have they not been in the IFSA before this? And so what they've already built, there's been nothing put into the fund, but now there will be, or it goes retroactive, or kind of the process of why a development's already midway through and now they're joining.
There is a story there, and it takes, you'd have to have been here about as long as I have been. Lennar bought Pioneer Meadows from Barker Coleman. So the original trust accounts were done with Barker Coleman. Lennar's been using them. In this case, they chose now to start a trust account under their name because I think those old agreements with the takedown and the property purchase, the existing trust accounts that were done under Barker Coleman are now coming, their balances are going to zero. So I think Dustin at Lennar chose to open a new agreement under Lennar Reno LLC. It'll probably be the last one they do.
So there was one under Barker Coleman then?
There were many that
That were
Lennar
in
inherited.
as part
Yeah,
of the
I believe there
program.
was a flood account,
Okay.
there was a regional trail parks account.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it came with the property, if you
Okay,
will.
thank you.
Anyone else, questions? Okay, looking for a motion. Is there do the motion on this? No.
Christopher is.
Sir, I can make a motion.
Go ahead, Christopher.
I move to improve impact fee credit agreement number 24 between the City of Sparks and Lennar Reno LLC, including $93,345 impact fee credits that may be used for any future building permits issued within IFSA number 1.
Bybee.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dare, second by Ms. Bybee to approve 9.6 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, John. Yep. And John? 9.7, consideration, discussion, possible approval of City of Sparks sponsorship of an amendment to the 2012 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan to relocate a regional utility corridor crossing the Wild Creek Golf Course property. Go ahead there, Jimmy.
Good afternoon, Jim Rundle, Planning Manager. In 1997, the Regional Planning Governing Board established a Regional Utility Corridor Citizens Advisory Committee to consider and designate regional utility corridors in the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. In 2008, the City of Sparks, Washoe County, and City of Reno sponsored an amendment to the regional plan to replace that report with official policies that were in the 2007 regional plan. Those policies were carried forward into the current 2012 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. The Washoe County School District is in the process of purchasing the land at 3500 Sullivan Lane, the Wild Creek Golf Course property, to construct a high school on the site. Their preliminary site analysis has identified where the school facilities would be most appropriately located. The location is underneath the existing electrical transmission line that is in a utility corridor as identified in the 2012 regional plan. I'll put an attachment or an exhibit on the overhead, and it should be included in your staff report as well.
That's for the next meeting, I think.
Is it opening? Not yet.
Isn't it?
It is.
Construction of structures in the designated utility corridor is prohibited by the regional plan, and so this request would be moving the utility corridor and the existing transmission line. The blue line represents the current existing utility corridor and the transmission line. The proposal is the red line going to the north of the property and then coming back south into the existing corridor. To the west, we have Sullivan Lane right here. It comes in, and then McCarran would be down here along the southern boundary of the property. Wedekind coming in here as well at the southern end. The Regional Planning Commission may consider amendments to the regional plan any times it finds the proposed amendment necessary to the health and welfare of the community or substantially benefits the community in general. The regional plan amendments must be sponsored by either the City of Sparks, the City of Reno, the Regional Planning Commission, or Washoe County. The City of Sparks, in this case, requested that Washoe County Schools submit the amendment through the City of Sparks, as opposed to going to Truckee Meadows Regional Planning and asking the Regional Planning Commission to do so. This was so that the Sparks City Council could consider the sponsorship. This removes the occasion that recently happened at Regional Planning Governing Board, where the City of Reno representatives on the governing board reviewed an amendment that was sponsored through Regional Planning Commission, and they had yet to see it. I believe it was on a TMSA amendment. This utility is an above-ground transmission line that connects the Sullivan Lane transmission line to the Spanish Springs substation. The transmission line is owned and operated by NV Energy, and NV Energy, I included NV Energy's letter of support in your packet. The Washoe County School District is seeking approval to move the existing utility corridor that traverses the Wild Creek Golf Course property as we just depicted in this exhibit. The existing transmission line and utility corridor crosses a portion of the Wild Creek Golf Course that is flat and most appropriate for development. And staff has tried to identify through help with the applicant, the yellow identifying the primary building site and the green identifying accessory school uses. And that is in the flatter area of the Wild Creek parcels. And you can see the blue line, the current utility line, traverses both the proposed accessory school area and the primary building site area. What is important about this that staff is trying to identify is whether or not a school is ultimately constructed there or not. It has been the RSCVA's agenda or plan to get rid of utilizing the course as a golf course in that area, and we have identified the most appropriate place for possible development, or redevelopment would be a better word of anything, would be in the area that the current transmission line traverses. If the Sparks City Council sponsors the regional plan amendment today, it does not constitute any type of project approval. It does not approve the transmission line to be relocated. It does not relocate the transmission line corridor. It simply directs the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning staff to bring forward to the Regional Planning Commission and the Regional Planning Governing Board the consideration of relocating the transmission line corridor. The City Council representatives at the Regional Planning Governing Board, Councilman Lawson, Councilwoman Bybee, and Councilman Abbott would be considering it at the Regional Planning Governing Board. In the case that the power line is approved in the case that the transmission line corridor is relocated through the regional planning process, the City of Sparks would still require an entitlement in the form of a conditional use permit to consider physically relocating the transmission line. That would be done through a public hearing at a minimum through the Sparks Planning Commission. Construction of a high school at this respective site would also require a conditional use permit for construction on an area with slopes exceeding certain parameters. Again, this hearing today does not constitute any approval of any project, just direction to Truckee Meadows Regional Planning staff to move forward to the Regional Planning Commission the consideration of relocating the transmission line corridor. Because the relocation of the utility corridor provides for more flexibility or redevelopment of the Wild Creek site, the Sparks Planning Commission forwarded a recommendation that the City Council sponsor this amendment. That concludes my presentation.
Questions for Jim, and I have one quick one. We're not approving any projects today, are we?
Correct.
Just want to make sure everybody understands that. We're just voting on moving the transmission line for anything that might occur there, whether it's a school, whether it's another golf course or whatever it might be in the future, airport, whatever, it might be anything. So we're not approving any project.
Correct. And it would be to sponsor the consideration of relocating just the approved corridor, so where it ultimately should go. It wouldn't even necessarily approve the line to be constructed over there. That would be a subsequent conditional use permit.
A lot more meetings to go to get this completed and done. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim, if this gets approved, and whenever it happens, who's paying for this?
I believe that the school district would, but the NV Energy has a representative here in the audience today, and there's a representative from the Washoe County School District if the mayor chose to maybe have one of them answer that question.
Could, come on down and.
Welcome, Pete. You got 20 seconds. So
Thank you, Mayor. Pete Etchart, Chief Operating Officer for the Washoe County School District. To answer your question, we actually already have a fully executed agreement contingent upon the approval process with NV Energy. The Washoe County School District would be paying for the relocation.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know. Thanks, Pete.
Okay, questions, Ed Lawson?
So to me, this is the boiling frog situation. So now we're going to be asked to move a corridor. Pretty soon, we're going to be asked to approve the ore ditch realignment. Pretty soon, it'll be a widening of Sullivan. Pretty soon, it's this, and pretty soon, oh, now we have 9 of the 10 things we need to put a school in there. And to correct your comment, the RSCVA was not trying to shut down the golf course. They were trying to get out of the golf course business, which they are at this point. The Duncan management is now managing it, and they're quite happy with that arrangement since I sit on that board. So I can't approve it. None of the neighbors want it, never have wanted it. Sparks hasn't been consulted on any part of this, and this is the first time we've seen it as a city council for the high school. So I'm no way that I can even get close to thinking about making this work, because there are just too many things. There's traffic mitigation. School district's only taking 75 acres of 212 acres. What happens to the other 135 acres? They say that it's going to remain a golf course, but what guarantee do we have as Sparks and residents in Sparks that'll remain a golf course? Is the Washoe County going to put in the $6 million to refurb the golf course, to redo it the way it would make it, be it playable and still keep the executive court, the driving range, all the other things that they talked about? Or do they just come back at some point and then we're going to get condos there and the green space is gone? Flood mitigation is a big problem. You're going to put a big high school, the football, flat fields out there. Where's all that water draining to? It's draining down into the neighborhoods. So there's a lot of questions here that I have, and I'm not nowhere close to thinking that this thing will work in my mind. And I'm afraid that this is the boiling frog syndrome all over. You're just going to keep turning up the heat and turning up the heat until it's, well, you got to approve it now because we've done all the other stuff.
So again, we're not approving a project, are we? We don't know there's gonna be a school here. I mean, we know they're looking to be here, but we don't know that. So all the questions that are being asked now have nothing to do with or are relevant to this particular transaction. That's the only thing I can say, Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, was there a reason they went, I guess, that line, that corridor right there? I'm assuming it's right, a straightish line, of course.
With the
but-
proposed red line,
With the old one, the actual blue, is
oh, when
there-
they constructed that?
Yeah, besides, I know you don't want to jog around, that makes sense, but is there a reason why it shows right through there and maybe not going up higher or back in the day?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Potentially, Mark Sullivan with formerly Sierra
Representative Power
Pacific
was
and
on,
NV Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark Sullivan
Enlighten us, Mark, would you please?
with NV Energy, actually, but that's some old school Sierra Pacific. Yeah, you know what? My experience, I've only been at the power company for 15 years, so I'm kind of a new guy there. But my experience of working with engineers is the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So I get it all the time. These guys will do a design, it'll go right through everything, and you're like, what are you thinking? You think that's going to get approved? So this may actually have predated, I don't know the age of the line, but it may actually have predated the golf course. But a lot of times, that's what they're doing, is they're looking for points where they can get the longest span to have the least amount of impact or touch points on the ground. In this case, where you're, like Jim was talking about, we're just trying to create a larger building envelope for anybody that goes in there, whatever that may be.
Kind of like City of Reno building a golf course over the right-of-way or the proposed right-of-way for the Tahoe Pyramid Link or Southeast Connector, right? Same thing, straight line. Mr. Dare, I'm sorry, Mr. Dare.
So, I mean, we know this is a contentious conversation, and it has a lot of. It'd be nice to look at the whole piece of everything so we can make a decision. My concern, actually, if we don't say yes, and this, let me just say this out loud, is that then we're passing the buck of something that's in our jurisdiction, and now we don't get to keep looking at it. Whereas, because if this, it's going to continue to move forward, and somebody else is going to push it forward, and it's going to be with their conversation, with their staff, instead of our own staff. Am I correct on that? I mean, you can't know what somebody else is going to do, but if we say yes to this, then it stays within our staff, and we get to know what's happening in our jurisdiction, right?
I'll attempt to answer that, Councilman Dare. If the Spark City Council were to say no, and Regional Planning Commission or the City of Reno or Washoe County could propose the same amendment request to Regional Planning Commission, Regional Planning Governing Board, your staff would still review the entitlement, assuming it got approved that way through the governing board. Spark staff would still review the conditional use permit for the construction of the line.
Because I think for me, what I would like to see, I'd like to see the whole thing. How is this going to affect traffic? How is this before? I mean, it'd be nice if we could look at the whole picture of all of it so we can make some formal decision. But we don't have any of that information, and we're not approving a project right now.
Correct.
So with this is just a moving forward of making this so. I don't know. For me, I don't know that it makes sense to say no to this. I get the idea of the, slowly boiling pot, but I don't think this is enough information to know what to do, I think, as a region.
That's the same.
Ms. Bybee.
I think the most important part for me is that moving that transmission line makes sense for opening that plot of land for whether you support the school or not. And I'm not going to make a statement on that at this time because it's not what we're considering. To move that up there takes that out of the middle of flat developable area that could be used for multitude, not just high school. If the high school doesn't happen there, it could be for something else. And whether that's housing, whether it's the golf course stays, it also, I think it benefits anything on that piece of land by moving the transmission line north, because no one, whether you're in a home or condo, there's concern, when those major power lines are right over the top of a development. So I think the fact that moving that, I think, is a wise move to mitigate, the current location of the power lines, and makes more sense for that property to have more potential to be whatever it's going to be. And I can't say at this time what it will be. So it's I support what this just makes sense to me. Thank you.
Thanks. I think you grasped what's going on here. We don't know what's going to be there. We won't know what the traffic counts are or how it's going to affect traffic and that kind of stuff because we don't know what the project could. I mean, we have in our minds what it's probably, we think it's going to be, but we have more cracks at this down the line, do we not?
Yes, sir.
This is not the end of the hunt here for this particular project if we're talking about a school, or is it?
Mr. Mayor, if assuming this were sponsored and the Regional Planning Commission and Governing Board chose to approve the relocation of the transmission line corridor, the transmission line construction and construction of a school would both require a conditional use permit. They may very likely come through on the same meeting, if not bundled together. But there would be the opportunity for the Planning Commission, and of course, the City Council could call that item up to be considered at the council level as well.
To me, this is the right thing to do for our region or whatever's going to be here, just in case it's not a school. It could be something different. And then this is a done deal and it's over with as far as whatever gets to be put there. And I haven't made up my mind whether that's the school there is the right thing to do either. But having said that, I think moving the line is the right thing to do. Any other comments, questions? Okay, looking for a motion, Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve the City of Sparks sponsorship of an amendment to the 2012 Turkey Meadows Regional Plan to relocate a regional utility corridor crossing the Wild Creek Golf Course property.
Have a second? Don't be bashful, kids. Mr. Abbott.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Ms. Bybee, seconded by Mr. Abbott to approve agenda item 9.7, which would be to sponsor an amendment to the regional plan to the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. It passes 5-4 to 1. Mr. Lawson is a no. Thank you. Mr. Rundle, thanks very much. Good job. Thanks, Pete. Consideration number 9.86, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of resolution number 3338 to amend the process for appointing members to the Sparks Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. Hey, Miss Burge, what happened Saturday night there with your?
There's a little bit of rain.
Gosh darn it, we didn't plan that.
I think
Okay,
I'm
go ahead.
finally dried out.
Go ahead, Francine. You look dry.
Thank
You
you.
look drier than you did to your text.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm here with a resolution to make an adjustment to the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee bylaws. When we created this committee 2 years ago, we did it incorrectly where we didn't allow the members to have a staggered expiration date. So as it stands now, everyone expires at the same time. So this resolution is to change that so that we have more continuity, and it changes that, that bit. Do you have any
Questions
questions?
for Ms. Burge? Okay, Mr. Smith, motion?
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. No, I'm gonna
Go
have a
ahead,
few
go ahead.
questions. Francine, I have a few problems with this. We have 5 members now, we're going to 6.
No, we're staying with 5. We had one person resign, and so we are finding another person for that spot. And that's the person with the expertise in humanities.
Okay. How many members of the committee live in Sparks?
How many members live in Sparks? As it stands now, off the top of my head, I think 2
Okay,
out of the 4.
okay. On the membership part, it says, the Sparks mayor shall make appointments to the ACAC. Members shall be residents of Washoe County and will be selected on the following criteria. Then it gives the criteria. I really would rather see the members from Sparks, all of them from Sparks. Or if we have 5, and it says right here it's 6, so a total of 6 members will make up the ACA.
Oh, you know what? I'm thinking of myself as the non-voting staff member.
Okay, so you're a member, but you're non-voting.
Right.
Okay, so I would suggest that the majority be from Sparks, if it's 3 or 2, no more than 2 from another, from the county or from Reno, because I think most of them are from Reno, aren't they?
Well, we have that opportunity with the person coming on, this 5th person.
I'd like to see it in the bylaws here.
The reason we did set that up that way is that because it's a new committee, and we know that a lot of people in Reno have a greater amount of arts experience, we wanted to cast a wider net, especially in the first couple of years, so that we could get people that actually have more experience working with arts organizations. And most of those organizations are housed in Reno, and that's the only reason. So
Okay.
everyone that has, that's on the committee is geared to what's best for the city of Sparks and its residents.
No, I understand that. I know that you have to have something in an arts degree or whatever it happens to be. I just don't think, I think we have 100,000 people in here, and we can fill it with people from Sparks. That's one man's opinion, and I didn't think we had anybody from Sparks in that committee.
Oh, no, that's not true.
Okay. So,
That's the only problem is meeting the criteria you've set up for some of the membership is pretty difficult to have that kind of experience, whether you're in Sparks or Reno or Washoe County or the Moon or whatever. It's just hard to find people that first of all, want to volunteer to do that.
Correct.
Second of all, that have those kind of criteria so I can understand it for maybe the first 3 years of the committee or something, and then maybe go back and changing some of the criteria that there, so you can make it Sparks centric, or whatever you want to call it. But I know where you're coming from. I'm with him. I'd rather see the whole group from Sparks would be my preference, but starting out, that could be very difficult with getting enough people on. First of all, we haven't had any experience or looked at an arts commission for how many years has it been since this could have gone on, and we have no experience at all in the city about doing arts and stuff. So therein is the problem I have. Like he said, I'd rather have them all from Sparks if we could do that, but finding somebody to volunteer first and then having the experience that we're looking for is difficult to know about the arts. So I just hate to see us get off on the wrong foot with people that maybe are from Sparks that maybe don't understand enough about art. So, Mr. Dare.
I'd like to, a couple things. One is, I agree actually with Ron that I'd like to see eventually that we get to where it's all Sparks. But I don't know that there's any reason we couldn't make sure there's still a majority at this point and open it up to a couple that could be out, because I do think getting people in. But I serve on a lot of boards, and we have a lot of ex officio members, they're called. They don't get to vote, but they get to come and give us guidance, and those are people who don't necessarily fit the criteria, but they have something great to offer. So there's a way to take our people, train them up with people around. I mean, maybe people wouldn't be interested if they weren't voting, I guess, someone might say, but I don't know that's true. A lot of these people love art, and it's just not a regional board, and I think it's strange that we're treating it such. So that's, from the time that I've kind of watched it, I've been just kind of watching quiet. But I do think it's interesting that we're treating it in that manner, in my opinion.
No, I think that's a good long-term plan. We do have opportunities coming up with the master plan to have more opportunities for people to sit on committees and give input. So that's an excellent time for us to bring more residents and Sparks into those ad hoc and committees.
Mr. Lawson.
I could get what you're saying. I think we had put in this, that we have a weighted, if you're a Sparks resident, you get more consideration than any other resident. And that way it
That's a good
allows you
idea.
to move towards an all Sparks committee in the future. That way we get it done, at least get started and figure out what we're gonna do in the future is to make that all Sparks. As I don't believe that Sparks has a lack of people that wanna be involved in the arts.
Ms. Bybee.
I appreciate, Francine, where you're coming from, and having worked with the EDON Arts in Business Awards last year and now this year again. I don't know as much about I really, my information and my background in art is not in art. So I've been amazed at the people that I've met through that program, and seeing just how many people in this community of Northern Nevada have extensive art background and history. And to get us started, I think this was the right thing to do, because we needed that expertise. We needed that people who have been here and been involved to kind of give us a stronger foundation. I'm wondering, as we're looking at the two members, that we're going to change the expiration date, could we look at on the performing arts and then the visual arts and then humanities? But performing arts and visual arts are two people, and we're going to have one term expire this year and one expire next year. Could we take, I don't know how you're deciding on those, but could we keep the people who are from Sparks still on for that additional year? Because I'm guessing that's random on who you decide would expire in 2018 and who would be 2019. Could we make sure that if we've got two Sparks people, that we could make sure that they stay there, and then encourage through community outreach, more Sparks residents to apply? I would love to see a majority. I'm okay with us not having all Sparks unless we move forward and we see that we have the people with the talent to and the experience that we could be all Sparks. Ultimately might be our goal. But I think majority, I would like to see majority if we could, and if we could keep our Sparks people on there for that extra year, that would be my suggestion.
Mr. Dare.
I just want to ask, so in this particular thing, if we this, can we ask for some, I just want to make sure, because we can't make changes to this. This is either agree or don't disagree, correct?
Correct. You're here just to decide whether or not to approve the amendment staggering the terms, and if council's direction to Mr. Driscoll is to ask that the rules or the bylaws for the committee be changed, then that would come back at a different day when we have a chance to actually look at the language, but it's difficult for Ms. Burge and for our office to change language on the fly like this. So it needs to, if that's your direction, I'm sure Mr. Driscoll will
Make a motion.
pass that on.
Let me try to make a motion here.
Go ahead.
So, I'll get my glasses, I'm sorry. I'm getting older. You guys hanging out with these guys, I'm getting older, check it out. I move to adopt the resolution number 338 to amend the process for appointing members to the Sparks Arts and Culture Advisory Committee as proposed by staff, but I would like to add a direction that what we spoke about in.
Mr. Dare, if I might, could we just get the amendment done, and then after the amendment's done and with the vote, you can provide direction. But at this point, let's finish up with the amendment and the motion.
Okay,
So you're finished with the motion?
I'm finished with the motion.
Just want the motion first, right? Then we'll do the-
Motion first, and vote, and then if there's direction, to come back later with amendments, let's handle it that way, please.
So we have a motion, right? We have a second, Ms. Bybee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Bybee, second, or by Mr. Dare, seconded by Ms. Bybee. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, please vote. Passes 4-1. Okay, now, so that portion is passed. Now, do you want to ask for, do we need to ask for it now or during comments, or what? Can we ask for
During
it?
comments, and
Okay.
I'm sure the city manager at this point has clear direction as to what people are looking for.
I'm sure he does too. I see him writing feverishly, so he must have. So you bring it up again though in comments, Mr.
Yes.
Dare, that direct for Mr. Driscoll to bring this back to the council. Would be good. Okay, you're done, I guess. Thanks, Francine. I appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to public hearings and action items. 10.1, public hearing, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an amendment of the portion of L Street public right-of-way adjacent to 1408 Pyramid Way, abandonment, of the portion of L Street public right-of-way adjacent to 1408 Pyramid Way. Go ahead, Mr. Erickson, yes.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, John Erickson, City Engineer for the record. The city has received an abandonment request from AB Living Trust to abandon a portion of L Street. There at the address is 1408 Pyramid Way. Just a little history on why we're here today is in 1957, Dr. Albert and Vicki Demers purchased the property there at 1408 Pyramid. At approximately 1966, they installed an underground pool, and to secure the pool area, they built a block wall and a fence around to secure the pool. Unbeknownst to them, they built the wall in public right-of-way. They've just recently determined that. And so the trust applied for an abandonment on April 27th. All the owners abutting the property were notified via certified mail, and that's per NRS 278.480. The extent of the abandonment, as well as this public hearing, was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on July 9th. The staff finds that the public will not be materially injured by the proposed abandonment, and we are recommending approval of the abandonment. I just want to note that Karen Bear is here in the audience. She's the daughter of the doctor, and that if you have any questions for her, she'd be more than happy to answer any questions. That concludes my presentation.
Questions for staff or direction? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. I do have one card from Karen Bear that she is in favor of this to be done, and she does not wish to speak. Is that correct?
Not unless you had a question.
Is there anything you want to say, Ms. Bear?
Exactly, forever.
Okay. So you're in favor of this being done? Okay, that's all we need to know. Anyone else want to speak under public comment? Okay, I'll close the public comment, bring it back to council for action. Looking for a motion, Mr. Abbott.
Motion. I move to approve the abandonment of a portion of L Street public right-of-way adjacent. I'm gonna start over. I move to approve the abandonment of a portion of L Street public right-of-way adjacent to 1408 Pyramid Way, APN 033-011-24, per request from AB Living Trust to the City of Sparks.
You have a second? Bybee.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Abbott, seconded by Ms. Bybee to approve 10.1 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Please display. Passes 4-0 with those present. Mr. Smith is somewhere else. Okay, thanks, John. And I want to note, we did exactly what the public wanted us to do. We had one public comment, so it was in favor, and now we did this. 100% of everybody that wanted to do this is here, so we took care of it. It's good. We did what the people wanted finally. Okay, planning and zoning, 11.1, second reading, public hearing, discussion and possible adoption of bill number 2744, an ordinance to annex real property approximately 1.9 acres in size and located at 2101 Sullivan Lane, Sparks, Nevada. Go ahead, Karen.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Karen Melby, Development Service Manager. Before you today is a request for a voluntary annexation into the city of Sparks for a property that's 1.9 acres in size. It's located on 2101 Sullivan. The property here is outlined in cyan. It's at the corner of Sullivan and Kelly Ranch Drive.
Say that again, it's outlined what?
In cyan?
Well, it's a
That's
color.
the name of a color.
Can't we get back to using red, white, and blue and that kind of stuff? Whose idea was this, John Martini's or something? Cyan. What is cyan similar to?
Teal or
Okay, good, all right, thank you, I'm sorry.
no problem.
That's just a.
I'm
it's
just using what the computer calls it, cyan.
You know, I was talking to the mayor-elect, and he said, you know, he'd like to see things in red, white, and blue in his.
I remember that.
Okay, we'll note that in our vicinity maps in the future.
Please, no cyan, please.
Yeah. The site is located within Washoe County. It's an island, but it is under the city of Sparks planning jurisdiction. The owner would like to redevelop their property, and in order to redevelop this property, it requires that they be annexed into the city. This annexation petition includes annexing the western portion of Sullivan Lane, which is shown here on the annexation map. This portion of Sullivan Lanes is actually not within the city limits right now, so we are including with this annexation, that annexation of the Sullivan Lane, though the city does maintain all of Sullivan Lane. According to the Washoe County Assessor's records, there are 3 residential units on this property and 2 detached garages. They were constructed in 1955. These 3 existing houses are currently served by municipal water and sewer. If annexed, the Washoe County zoning designation of E1 or estates residential would convert to the city's SF 15, which is single family 15,000 square foot lots. There are annexation findings that I need to review. The first one is A1, which is conformance with NRS 268 requirements. The city's annexation program has expired. NRS 268.670 allows the city to consider annexations without an annexation program if the property is contiguous to city limits and requested by all the property owners in the petition. The subject property is contiguous to the city limits and is being requested by the one single property owner. Therefore, the city council can consider the annexation. A2, so the second finding is conformance with the Sparks Municipal Code 20.0505, which consists of 10 sub-findings. The first finding is the location of the property. The subject property is contiguous to the city limits and is within our sphere of influence. Second, or B, is a logical extension of city limits. The property is contiguous to the city limits on 3 sides. And it is already being served by city utilities and services along with access by 2 city streets. Therefore, annexation is a logical extension of the city limits. C is the need to expansion for growth. The property is a portion of a Washoe County island which is already being served by the city services and utilities. Annexing this property will allow for redevelopment within the city limits. D is the location of the existing planned water or sewer services. The subject property is currently served by Sparks Sanitary Sewer, and Truckee Meadows Water Authority provides the water service. E is community goals. The comp plan goals and policies met by this proposed annexation are goal MG6, policy MG7, policy CF1. Because it is adjacent to an older part of Sparks, is within this McCarran Loop, is currently served by city services, contiguous to city limits on 3 sides, and is a logical extension of the city limits as discussed previously. F is the efficient and cost-effective provision of capital and service facilities. The subject property is currently served by the city's sanitary sewer, police, fire, and is requiring no additional city services to be provided. Fiscal impact analysis, which is G. Fiscal impact analysis that was submitted with the application, it was based on a redevelopment of the property into an RV storage facility. The fiscal impact analysis estimates that the redevelopment of this property as an RV storage will generate a cumulative positive impact on the city's general fund of approximately $15,000 over a 20-year period of the city's general fund. H, which is Washoe County Community Management Plan. The staff did solicit Washoe County, and Washoe County submitted a letter saying that they had no comment on this annexation request. I is the creation of islands. This request would annex a portion of a Washoe County island. A portion of this island will remain, but the annexation does not create an island. However, this request will actually reduce the size of the existing island. J is other factors. No other factors were identified pertaining to this annexation petition. Finding A3, which is conformance with the comprehensive plan. In 2002, the city exerted planning jurisdiction by including this area in its spheres of influence. Through the annexation program, though the annexation program expired in 2015, NRS 268.670 allows us annexation of properties without an annexation provision if it's contiguous to city limit requested by the sole property owner. Intensification of this property or the redevelopment will require annexation. The last finding, A4, is public notice. Public notice was mailed to the property owners at a minimum distance of 750 feet for the subject property, which the city sent out 118 letters to all the surrounding property owners. Public notice was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on May 24th, 2018. And to date, the staff has not received any phone calls or emails regarding this property. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Questions for Ms. Melby? No questions? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll open to the public. Anyone want to discuss this under public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for action. Mr. Lawson.
I move as set forth in the staff report to adopt bill number 2744 to annex into the city of Sparks real property approximately 1.9 acres in size located at 2101 Sullivan Lane, Sparks, Nevada.
Do you have a second? Mr. Dare.
I second that.
Moved by Mr. Lawson, seconded by Mr. Dare to approve 11.1 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. So we're annexing now from Cheyenne, right?
Yeah.
Got a country? Okay, any other comments? Okay, right now we have 11.2 public comment. Anyone talking or public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to 11.3 announcements. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to take an adjournment until 6 p.m. and we need to vote on this, correct, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. So can I get a motion for adjournment to time certain of 6 p.m. when we'll hear the 2255 Los Altos Parkway agenda items? Mr. Smith.
Move to adjourn until 6 p.m.
Mr. Dare.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Dare to adjourn until 6 p.m. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Okay, see you at 6, folks. Thank you.
No, we got redevelopment. Can I have your
Oh, okay.
gavels?
I'd like to call to order the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting of Monday, July 23rd with a roll call.
I got just,
Chairperson Bybee.
Here.
Agency members Abbott. Here. Lawson. Here. Smith.
Here.
Martini.
Here.
Dare.
Here.
Agency Attorney Eiding.
Here.
And Chief Administrative Officer Driscoll.
Here.
Thank you, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item three, public comment. Do I have any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Item number 4.1, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
I have a motion by Agency Member Martini. Do I have a second? Agency Member Dare? Second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Item 5.1, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the minutes of the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting of June 25th, 2018. Do I have any corrections, additions, or a motion to approve? Agency Member Martini?
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Motion to approve. A second, Agency Member Adair?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Item 6.1, consideration and possible acceptance of the report of the claims and bills approved for payment and appropriation transfers for the period of June 7th, 2018 through July 3rd, 2018.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
A motion from Agency Member Martini. Do I have a second? Agency Member Dare?
Second.
Second. Please, any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 7.1, do I have any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close comments from the public. Item 7.2, comments from the agency and Chief Administrative Officer. Seeing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I
Second.
have a motion from Agency Member Martini, second from Member Abbott. I'm just going to adjourn. We don't need to vote on that. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I was close. I was close. I said 3:48. He said 4 o'clock. And when we did that, but I was pretty close. I said 3:48. So yeah.
You're good. You're good.
Thank you so very much. Yeah. Oh my God.
You want it really cold right now.
Good.
We are gonna get sued or anything, or?
No, I was
Not now, not yet.
Wait, am I
Any laws,
counting?
any smart-ass comments?
Okay, I looked on my phone and I didn't see it.
Single family is in
I got it.
that.
You okay?
Okay.
You do, dude.
That's what you do, what you do.
That's what you do, that who do you that you do.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they were to subsequently come in with some sort of single family proposal, we'd really have to look at it and see how closely it conforms.
I'm not gonna get the electric, hooked up or what?
Development agreement, and we have those
Get the
permitted uses,
electricity
but we
hooked up
also
there?
are approving that.
Specific agreement.
Yeah.
So I know their specific plan is the multifamily, but when I saw that, all of a sudden, and it is a permitted use.
Because it's permitted in the zoning, but again.
But it would come back, if that was a condition, that would have to come back, like you explained to me before, the whole process, because they'd have to have, that plan wouldn't fit.